All right, you ready?
Let's do it. I'm ready. Hit me.
Okay, so I'll just start with basic name, age, location, and the type of relationship you're looking for.
Let's see. My name is Joshua Mitchell. How old am I? I am 32 years old. And location, I am in Austin, Texas. And type of relationship I'm looking for, I would like a life partner slash uh, long-term relationship, I guess.
There has been a funny thing that I've noticed. Three out of the four people I've talked to so far, when I asked how old they were, had to stop and think about it or like got their age wrong initially. So what's like your day to day like?
Ooh, fair enough. Um, let's see. So day to day, wake up. What is typical? I guess there's like the typical things, right? The things that we all do as humans, like brush our teeth, and uh, I have coffee, and I guess usually, okay, all right, I have the answer. The answer is it falls into one of three buckets, right? Either it's like a client day, um, and I have all the things that I have to do for the client, and then I basically like splay them all out on my computer, and I just stare at the list and then hope and pray that my brain like organizes it into something that sounds like a reasonable task list with like dependencies and things I'm forgetting about. And then I'll just stare at it until I am sufficiently like motivated enough to do it. And then I will just blaze through everything, and not everything. As long as basically until I run into something that like kills my momentum. Because like if everything is like ironed out and there's no like thing I need to wait on, or if there's no like roadblock or anything like that, I'll go for like 7 hours.
Holy shit.
But if there is something that blocks me, then I'll get distracted by something else, and then rinse and repeat. Then I like reassemble the things to do, and then I stare, and then I like give myself a little pep rally, and then I do more things. Unless, of course, I feel I am sufficiently progressed in the things. And then in which case I fart around and do other things. Um, but yeah, that's like a client day. If it's like a project, like a personal project day, then usually I'll wake up and browse social media for like realistically like honestly like an hour and a half or so, just really. And to be clear, like that's not just Twitter, that's like everything, right? Like I'll scroll through Twitter for like maybe 25-30 minutes, and I'm subscribed to like hundreds of newsletters, so like I'll read through like maybe, I don't know, 20 to 45 of them depending on how many I have.
Damn.
And just yeah, I read a lot. And then after that, I'll go through like all the Substacks that I'm subscribed to, and I just basically like absorb a crap ton of information. And then at some point, I will take that energy and like I'll kind of like Tai Chi it into my personal projects. Um, or sometimes like I just get overwhelmed with like all sorts of other ideas, and like I can't pick what I want to work on. And then in which case I just don't do anything all day.
Yeah, that one I understand.
Yeah. So that's probably the second way that the day works. The third day is like it's like a logistics day. Like I'll try and batch all of my um, administrative tasks, like doctor's appointments, filing taxes, blah 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 blah. Like I'll try and get meetings. I'll try and get all of those. Like today. Today is actually an administrative day.
Oh, okay.
No offense.
Much offense taken.
So yeah, and I'll do that, and I'll just kind of blow through, and I'll be curmudgeony about it, like, yeah, I can't do my personal projects. I have to do administrivia. Yeah. But I'll do stuff. I'll get it done, and then afterwards, usually in the evenings, it's like some form of exercise or salsa dancing or uh, yeah, something, or like hanging out with people. It's either hanging out with people or salsa dancing. One of the two for the
Oh,
evening.
nice. Okay. Okay, now I have a bunch of questions. I'm gonna have to remember all the various things that cropped up. So, okay, so what is you said you have client dates. What do you actually do? Like, what's your occupation or your,
So that's hard to answer at the
nice.
moment. I have, so skills wise, like if you just look at from a money perspective, like where is my money coming from? I have a web design client, I have a video editing client, and I have an animation client.
Oh yeah, I saw your Twitter, your what do you call it? Display name right now is like you're making animations.
Yes.
Sick.
Yeah. So, for example, I made an animated segment of a YouTube video for a YouTuber. They had like an infographic that was like a minute and 15 seconds long that they wanted animated. And so I did that. I also have made like a series of instructional videos for an AI company that like wanted their software explained. They were like, "Hey, like you were a programmer and you can video edit it, so that kind of makes you kind of a unicorn. Could you make videos about our software, like and kind of explain our API and like all this other stuff?" I was like, "Yeah, that sounds good." So that's another client. And yeah, I also have a web design client. They need a website built. So I taught myself Webflow, and I'm making their website for them. Yeah, but like ultimately, I have, operationally speaking, my hands in all sorts of cookie jars, and I am moving towards just purely doing animation.
Sick.
But for now, I'm not as good at animation as I am at programming and web stuff. So the bulk of my income comes from web stuff for now. But that is where the train is headed.
Are you doing like more like motion graphics, After Effects type of animation stuff? Is that kind of what it is? Or okay, awesome. Yes, I'm familiar. This is also I've had a similar less programming and more editing and this type of thing. But yeah. Nice.
Ooh, cool.
After Effects is great.
I'm surprised you said that with such a straight face.
I mean, when you first open it and you've never seen it before, you're like, what is this ungodly, monstrous dumpster fire of a program? And then once you realize, I don't know, like I think learning After Effects helped me start learning programming a little bit because it feels kind of similar where it's like there's just a shitload of random stuff. You don't have to pay attention to any of it when you're trying to accomplish like one small task. And then you just sort of like you look up, how do I do this one small task? And then before you know it, you're like pretty familiar with the whole thing. Well, not the whole thing, but
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I guess my gripe with After Effects just comes from like how slow and heavy it is.
yes.
Like for me, that's just like 90% of my issue with it. Like, yeah, I mean, the UI, like you're right. Like it's intimidating, but like you get used to it for sure.
Yeah, that's fair. I've gotten so used to After Effects that I use it by default for basic editing, which is a mistake. And I started to do that for these videos. And then I was like, it's like slow-mo watching these things back.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I got like a gaming PC at one point because I was like, maybe this will help. And like, it does not, it doesn't matter. Oh yeah. Okay. So you mentioned salsa. How long have you been doing that? Are you like, is it like a more fun thing or are you like competitive or?
Yes and no. Okay, so let me try and digest this into context for you. So I am on a salsa dance team, and we do go to what are called salsa congresses. And my understand I'm not super like clear on exactly if this is true or not, but it like the intuition I get is that it's not really a competition, but it is kind of like you are kind of ranked like de facto.
Interesting.
In the sense that like there's all these subtle ways that it pops up where people kind of evaluate how good you are. Like one example is you have the list of performances, right? Like generally actually I'm not even going to say generally because I haven't been to that many. The one I went to last, they had a list of people or a list of teams that were performing, right? And you could kind of tell that it's in order of like, here's the beginners, here's the advanced people, and then there's everybody in between. So like it's not a competition in the sense that like, oh, like here's the subjective measurement of like how good you are, like how fast can you be, blah blah blah. But there is kind of this like rough gut feel of like, okay, like you're better, like you are more advanced. So there's no, yeah. So, and to be clear, like I'm not that good. Like I'm just on the beginner team. I'm more in the top of the list. But yeah, I've been Okay, I think that's enough context. And then to answer your other questions, I've been doing it for like, what is today? March? No, today's April.
Oh my god, yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is. I've been doing it for since August, so that's like 8 months or so.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
It sounds really fun actually. The even the mildly competitive bit
Oh my,
sounds
oh my gosh.
motivating.
It's okay. Oh my gosh. Like I could spend a long time like gushing about this, like especially because okay, I gotta gush for like at
Yeah,
least
no,
like
please do.
maybe 2 minutes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna blow past that, but it's an aspirational goal. Anyway, okay, so like picture me, right? Like I don't know, this is like a year ago, right? Like I'm your stereotypical like chair monkey, like never done any kind of like sports or anything, like very like out of touch with my body, like somatically speaking, like blah blah blah. Like I'm your like least likely suspect to like be found on like some kind of dance team, right? And I had a friend who at some point asked me, "Hey, you want to go to this dance thing? This dance class, social something?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not? I guess." Um, and I went, and I was abysmal at it, like just a dumpster fire all over the floor, like just absolute like garbage on the dance, flaming hot garbage. And I was insulted. Like I was like the fact that I could live in a universe where I was so bad at something, like just so cataclysmically abysmal at something was just like insulting. Like I couldn't stand it. It really like just drove a wrench through my heart. And I was like, no, no, no. I have to have some level of baseline proficiency at this. Like I can no longer live in this world and be this bad. So I kept going. It was originally like a line dancing thing. And so I went a few times. And then at some point, she also invited me to a salsa dance class. And I went, and I was even worse at that.
I was gonna say
Like,
that seems like way next level. Like line dancing is like that's where you start if you don't know how to move your body. I would also fail at line dancing. I would not try salsa.
well, I'm crazy, I guess.
Based.
And so I went and I was worse at it, and I was like, I no, I we're gonna get good at but like we're gonna get good at dancing, but also we have to focus, right? And by we I mean me, um, because I can't like I just have to pick one, right? And I picked salsa because I was like, I like the partner component of it, like that.
Mm,
That seems like it's got like built-in socialization and like all this other stuff. So I
mm.
was like, all right, we're gonna do salsa. And then about a few weeks later, same friend was like, "Hey, there's this salsa dance company that's doing auditions for their team. Wanna come with me? I'm gonna audition. You should audition too." And in the back of my head, I was like, "There's 0%. Like I'm horrible. Like I'm still horrible." But I mean, I'll go for fun. Like it sounds like crazy because I've never done an audition for anything,
Yeah.
right? Like unless you count like a job interview, but I've never like I don't know, the paradigm I'm imagining is like an acting audition
Mhm.
or like some kind of talent. I've never done anything like that. It was terrifying. So I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Let's just see like what happens. Um, so fast forward, we went to it, and it was literally like almost exactly how I imagined it. There were these two people. They had clipboards. They would teach us a routine, and then they would have us like try and do it and just see how well we could do it.
Damn.
And I was like, okay, I'm doing my best. Um, and true enough, like as I suspected, I was garbage still. And I was just like, all right, cool, that's fun. I'm moving on with my life. And so they messaged me maybe like 3 days later, and they were like, hey, so it's true, you are garbage. But we like your personality and we think that like you have potential, like you are obviously on the further end of potential on the realm of like experience, right? But like we think you could go places. So we'll give you a shot. Like we have this boot camp where we like kind of train everybody, get everybody up to speed before we start building routines and stuff. You should come and just like see how much of the fire hose you can drink from.
That's
And I
pretty
was like,
awesome.
yeah, let's do it. So yeah, I practiced a lot. I harassed people in the class to like practice with me. And I was just stubborn. But yeah, like it was really intense because like I'm probably your like stereotypical like gifted and talented like type that was kind of like, I mean, not to sound arrogant, right? But I guess I was smart, like I was a smart kid. And as a result, like most of the stuff that I tried, like I wasn't really that bad at it.
Yeah.
Like some stuff I was good at it, like math, but like other stuff I was at least not horrible at it. And like dancing is probably the first time I've ever been in a class and been in like the bottom 10 percentile of something.
Yeah.
And it was like it's probably like one of the most humbling things I've ever done. Like, wow, like this is crazy. Like everybody around me is so good and I am so bad. And I have to accept that. Like you if you have not already dislodged your sense of confidence from like achievement and all this other stuff, now's the time. Cuz otherwise you're going to get caught under the undertow and like this is going to be bad. So, yeah, it was in that sense it was also like a big like personal growth kind of experience too. Um and wow, the train has been very derailed. So now I need to get back to like
No, this is great. Like I think, I mean, obviously there's a bunch of like basic compatibility questions and things like that that you would want answers to if you're asking people questions about matchmaking. But I also think that like a big part of the point of this is to like show off how cool people are when they're excited about things they care about. So it seems to me to be really valuable to just be like, you want to go off on a topic, like do it. Because I think people are like not going to be more appealing than when they're doing stuff like this, right? Like this is like the good case if you're in a
yeah.
relationship with somebody is like they're going to be doing this at you a lot, right?
Yeah, that's true. You are not wrong.
Okay, yeah. Now I've distracted myself though. Okay. Yeah, the salsa thing is so cool. It feels like something that a lot of former gifted kids or whatever, like I would probably benefit from doing something like this that you can skill up at in this really public and embarrassing way, as
Mhm.
opposed to the really, like doing something like teaching yourself how to code or use After Effects or whatever. Like you're skilling up from nothing, but it's way less visible to other people, I think. And that makes a big difference. You can kind of wait to put things on display until after you've worked out the kinks a little bit.
Yep.
Do you have you done any like competitive like gaming or anything like this?
Uh no, only because like I'm a filthy casual when it comes to video games. Like I I like the competitive aspect of it. Like for example, I don't know, playing like Call of Duty, like yeah, it's fun to like, shoot my friends and be like, haha, I killed you. And then,
Yeah.
you're like trying to race to find each other and stuff. But like actual like ranked video games where you have to like grind points and like get gear and like really put in time into it. Like I don't have the attention span for all of that. Like the moment it feels like work, it's like no no no. If I'm gonna do work, I'm gonna get paid for it. I don't like do work for fun.
Yeah.
And to be clear, like I define work as like the set of things that I have to do that I don't want to do.
Mhm.
And I don't do things I don't want to do for fun. Like no, like why would I do that? So as a result, like I have friends who are a lot better than me at video games because they like drill things and
Yeah.
they like get gear and blah blah blah. But yeah, anyway, I'm not like that. I'm a filthy casual.
I was curious about this because it feels like the grinding your way up from the bottom at something you're quite bad at and you're like kind of in there with a bunch of skilled people in salsa. It feels like the sort of thing that is exciting about like competitive gaming. And I was wondering if like I feel
Ooh,
like almost every guy that I've talked to is like, oh yeah, I was ranked platinum in like fuck no, I can't remember the names of any games like League or whatever.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I was curious whether this translated from a previous, if this is like a thing or if this is just a separate like. It sounds like you're more rewarded by social things maybe or
Yeah.
like real life things that.
I get there's a number of reasons. Just off the cuff, with games and stuff, like I don't know. At the end of the day, it's like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas with like dancing and stuff, like I'm happy to practice it because like number one, like it's built-in exercise.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, like that fun exercise, like that's already a steal. What are you kidding me? Like, yeah, like for that reason alone, so much. Oh yeah, I would rather dance any day of the week than like play video games. Like I actually like I played like World of Warcraft and stuff like in high school
Mm.
and I've had several friends like try and like come back like and you know at first it was tempting like when I first graduated high school and I got the call beyond the grave, right? Like it was tempting because like I really didn't have I wasn't like super into any side projects, like I wasn't into dancing, like it was tempting because I didn't have a better alternative.
Mhm.
But now like I don't even feel tempted. Like it's just like no, like this is just intrinsically better. Like I am gravitated far more towards this. Like I like no, ew. Like I don't think I could ever like get into video games again because it's just dancing is just clearly better. And I'm in the process of like trying to dance pill all of my friends who are like currently like just knee deep in video games, but they just don't believe it.
Yeah, I
So
was gonna say, can you like pull them out of the games into the dance competitions? It feels
no,
like the drive would translate, but I think I have to imagine that like yeah, games it's just a lot more accessible to get, like you could be feeling like shit and lying around your house and do this stuff.
yeah. And
Wow.
I admittedly like it's also like the learning curve is pretty big for dancing. At
Mhm.
least it was for me because you have to have like even just doing like the salsa basic like for beginners it's just so mentally like taxing like from like an executive function point of view like coordinating your body and like matching it to the rhythm and finding like the timing like all of it is just so like it just takes practice and then like once you get the basic you're like oh my gosh well I don't want to be a boring dancer either now I have to learn moves
Cool.
and then it takes you like at least a few months to like learn the basic moves. And then beyond that, you're like, oh my gosh, well, like all I know is the basics. So now you want to like learn your own. And then before you know it, you're like 6 months in and you're like, okay, now I'm at least like baseline proficient enough to not embarrass myself social dancing. So
Damn.
there is a learning curve, but at the very end, like I wish I could impress this upon people. Like once you get to the end and you don't have to think about it as much, and like you can actually like you have a wide enough arsenal that you can be creative, it's so good. Like it's so rewarding. But yeah, it does take like it's kind of a grind at the beginning, to be honest.
You might be dance pilling me right now. I don't know about salsa. I don't like touching people, but the
Yeah.
wheels are turning now.
Well, that's so funny enough. That's one of the reasons why I like salsa is
Mm,
because like there's all these different dance styles and some of them are like really touchy feely,
yeah.
right? Like bachatas tends to be more touchy
Yeah.
feely, and then especially like sensual bachata, like you can get further along on the touchy feeling
Mm.
spectrum. And to me, for honestly, for me, like I'm not super like comfortable with it. Whereas to me, salsa is like the best I don't know, combination of like, yeah, like we are dancing, so we're gonna be touching, but at the same time, it's like, but we're like, you know, it's there's a respectable distance
Oh, okay.
between people, right? So that's why I like salsa personally.
Nice. Do you think once you've like I don't know hit some level at salsa, you're gonna branch out into more difficult if there are more difficult dance disciplines?
Um, Probably like the at least the way that the dancing works is you don't really have like salsa socials, at least here in Austin.
Mm.
You have like Latin socials where they
Oh.
play bachata songs, where they play merengue, where they play like cumbia and like other zouk. And so usually like you might have some where it's like purely salsa and bachata, but at the very least you're going to have other non salsa songs, so you're very much incentivized to like learn the other stuff too, so that you're not just like sitting there like twiddling your thumbs while the non salsa songs play.
Nice. What happens if you try to dance salsa to a non-salsa song? Is the beat just too wrong?
Um, a number of things. So, for example, with bachata, it just like musically it looks weird. Like you stick out like a sort. Like technically you can, right? You can dance like a salsa basic to a bachata song,
Mhm.
but everybody's gonna be like, "What are you doing?"
Damn. Well, rough out there.
Yeah,
That's awesome though. Um, yeah. So, all right. So you're interested in like long-term monogamous relationships. So what is your current living situation like? And like, what do you think it would be like living with you? Have you lived with people before?
yeah. So currently, I live with 3 other roommates. Um, have I lived with other people before? Yeah, basically most of my living has been with roommates, and mostly by choice. Like I tried living alone and I hated it. I was just like, gosh, this is just so like depressing.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, it's just so nice to either walk downstairs or like walk out of my room and just like somebody's there. Like, hey, like what's going on? Whereas I remember like whenever I lived alone, I would walk downstairs and like it's just stillness, like just silence and stillness.
Mhm.
Or worse, like there's a noise and it's like, hey, you live alone. Like what is so like it's I don't know, like a baseline level of anxiety. Like
Yeah.
anytime I heard a noise, I was just like, okay, I have to justify this. Like,
Yeah.
what is this? Okay, that sounded like a suspicious noise, but it's probably fine because it's been fine most of the time. So you're probably fine, but it does sound, it's, I don't know, like maybe I'm just neurotic, but I just, I don't know. I didn't like it. Like I liked seeing people. I like interacting with people. You know what it is? I think it's like you know how they say that like it's better to be in a good relationship followed by like not being in one, followed by being in a bad one,
Yeah.
right? Better to be alone than be in a bad one. That's literally how it is with roommates. Like to me, it's better to have really good roommates than it is to live alone. But it's better
Mm,
to live alone than to have bad roommates.
yeah. That sounds right.
And like I don't know, I guess I don't get it because like it's cheaper and it's better, and yet I don't know. It feels like a non-trivial amount of people prefer to live alone, and I'm like, why? Do you not know good people to live with? I just I don't know.
Maybe that's the yeah. Now I'm curious actually because I expect part of it is not wanting to have to. Well, it's it. You seem like you're pretty extroverted and maybe comfortable talking to people.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I expect some of the thing is like probably some people are just more introverted and don't want people around all the time, which is a little hard for me to imagine. But some of it is like you have to kind of compromise about certain things or be willing to navigate conflicts about like if one of your roommates leaves the dishes out too long, this type of thing. And a lot of people just don't want to
Mm,
deal with it or aren't comfortable dealing with it, maybe.
yeah.
But yeah, also I guess a lot of people don't really mind I get spooked if I'm alone in a house for too long. I start to get a
Yeah.
little like antsy and like is has the world ended and I didn't notice? Like what am I gonna see if I look out the window? I'm curious actually, did you grow up in a big family?
No.
Okay.
Just me, my brother, my mom, my dad.
Hmm. Yeah,
But
yeah.
my family was like pretty cold and distant and that kind of thing. And growing up, I thought it was normal until like I had friends, and then I went over to their houses, and like their parents were like, "Hi, honey, how are you? Here's a hug. Like I love you. How is your?"
Whoa.
And then I saw that, I was like, "That's awesome. Can we have like more of that in my life?" So I've uh, less intentionally, like as I was younger, but like more intentionally now, I like try and surround myself with that kind of thing as opposed to the lack of that kind of thing.
Nice. That's actually yeah, that's really good. I feel like a lot of people would not even if they identified this sort of lack, wouldn't know how to go about like setting up their lives in such a way that it's not doesn't continue to be a problem kind of.
Yeah,
That's cool. Yeah.
I was like that too.
Oh, really?
Um,
Wait,
it,
how'd you switch?
well, in the sense of like it's it's literally like a freaking Chinese finger trap,
Yeah.
like the devil's snare from Harry Potter, like it
Oh,
or
yeah, I'm familiar with Chinese finger traps though. I forgot about this. Yeah, I think I remember the snare thing too, maybe. Well,
yeah,
anyway.
the concept is the same, right? It's
Yeah.
like the whole like the more you struggle with it, the more it fights back kind of
Yeah.
thing. At least the way I see it is like at first I would be I'd be like, like I have my like needs and desires, and then I would, like I'd target it on someone and I'd be like, can you satisfy like my needs and desires, right? It's like, like this kind of energy,
Yeah.
right? Whereas like eventually like you just kind of learn, or at least I did, that it's far, far like more enjoyable and also far more effective to just give, right? Like
Mhm.
give compliments, give attention, like give, like whatever it is, whatever the vibe is, right? Like not to get like too like mystical or wooey, but like just whatever feels right, like give outward, like don't expect anything in return. And generally speaking, like I usually find that it comes back to me. So I don't know. As a result, like it just comes back and I don't have to worry about it.
Nice. Did you feel like there was a particular thing that sort of shifted for you to, like, I don't know, get comfortable doing this? Or
Um, Short answer is yes. Long answer is it was just like a whole bunch of different like therapy-esque modalities.
okay.
Um, like a lot of it was like journaling in different ways, right? Like literally talking to myself, writing stuff down, keeping a video journal. A big part of it actually was like reading Visa's Introspect
Nice.
and like doing the exercises and like sitting down and thinking and like, okay, like this is then coming up with like all the various like cognitive distortions that I would have about like the way people thought of me. And then I would like actually take the time to flesh them out. And then I'd look at them, now that they're outside my head and be like, that's actually not true at all. Like, I don't know why I would be operating on that premise. So yeah, just like a bunch of that followed by like actual therapy.
Mm.
Um, which was, I don't know, like it's kind of a toss up on like how effective that is. It doesn't feel super effective, but who knows? Like I can't really definitively say it wasn't. Um, but anyway, like the point is, like I did a whole bunch of that stuff, and like over time, I learned that I wasn't actually like introverted. I was just anxious,
Yeah.
and
Can relate.
yeah, so like once I figured out like yeah, like people aren't actually thinking about you that much.
Mhm.
Actually, you're doing pretty well. Actually, you're not that annoying. Actually, then it became like, oh, actually hanging out with people is pretty cool. And yeah, then that kind of like laid the path for a lot of other discoveries like, hey, if you give, then you'll get. And yeah, I don't know. I guess just growing up.
Yeah. That's fucking awesome, though. I feel like a lot of people don't get there. So there's like, it almost feels like there's a thing where you've got sort of the like anxious people who are like way too uncomfortable to really have vibrant social lives, and then you have um people who were anxious who figured it out kind of, and it turns out are actually extroverted and do all kinds of things and really push themselves. And then you have like the average person who's maybe a little more social and a little less anxious, but actually, like, once I developed better social skills, I realized how uncomfortable those people are in basic social scenarios too, and that was just sort of like, wait, like, what the fuck?
Yes. Oh my gosh, yeah. Like I could jump off of that, but I also want to give you time to like go through your checklist and
Yeah, fair.
questions.
um, yeah, I don't know. I'm still somewhat torn on whether it's better to just have a more natural conversation or to hit a bunch of things. But I should probably ask a bunch of things. Let's see. Okay, so it sounds like you have a good social life and a good like support network, basically.
Oh yeah, thank goodness.
Nice. And it sounds like, uh, wow, what the fuck? My brain is just emptying itself of thoughts. Well, anyway. Yeah, okay. So my impression of you right now is that it's like whenever you come across an interesting problem, you like throw a bunch of resources at solving it and are like quite successful at this pretty consistently.
Ooh, yeah. Oh my gosh, that's such a oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, okay. So, oh my gosh. All right. I have to pick a thought and then go with it. Okay, so my initial thought when you said that was I lost it, but I have another one to
Okay.
replace it. So basically, I've struggled with that a lot because how like there's kind of like this tension between like, hey, don't have analysis paralysis, but at the same time, like you do want to just try things,
Mhm.
but at the same time, like you also want to pay attention while you try things so that you actually learn from it
Yeah.
instead of just like flinging spaghetti against the wall, right? Um, and for me, like I've struggled a lot because my initial inclination is not to just like jump in and like experiment and figure stuff out. Like that is not me at all. Like I love to just sit there and just watch
Yeah.
from like from like all the angles, like really like check stuff out, like maybe like poke the bear like a little bit, like do experiments here and there, like make hypotheses, like disprove stuff. Like I like just going in there and like tearing stuff up, like it's way too chaotic. Like I like really like structured experiments so that everything that I do, I learn from it.
Mhm.
And I don't know, like I don't like the idea of like just jumping in there and then getting the thing done and then like I didn't learn anything from it. Like I just went in there and did like for example, whenever I was a software engineer, I found it was so tempting because I'd have some ticket, I have like something that like I needed to do, right? And my brain would like do pattern matching and I would look at it, look at the problem, and then I would Google stuff to like find code snippets that I could just throw in there and tweak.
Mhm.
And like through just raw pattern matching, like I could do that pretty mindlessly. Like I could Google it, find the code, paste it in, look at it. I could probably tweak this as this, and then it would just work. Or it wouldn't work, and then I'd try something else, and then I'd try something else, and then it would work.
Mhm.
That was like 80% of things, right? Like I could do a lot of it without thinking, like just kind of like half-ass guessing it,
Yeah.
and I could get away with it. And I hated that
Yeah.
because like it was like 6 months into like one of my jobs, and I felt like I didn't know anything because I didn't learn anything because I just like threw spaghetti at the wall and I was able to get away with it.
Mhm.
And so like it got to the point where I was given like higher level tasks to do and I was kind of crumbling because like I was lazy. Like I was able to get away with not learning anything, so I didn't. So now like there's like this expectation and like now it matters because I have to think more, but I haven't had the practice yet. So
Yeah.
it was a struggle, right? And so like over and over and over, I've learned that like even though people on Twitter or like wherever will be like, yeah, you just got to get in there and do things like don't succumb to analysis paralysis. But like for me, it really matters, like both from like a motivational point of view, but also from like I don't know, that's just like my personality, man. Like I love like just inhaling information. And you know, I won't retain most of it, but I'll still get like this kind of like gut feeling from it that I can then take and I can experiment and then I can just freaking learn a whole bunch from it.
It's fucking awesome. Yeah, it's like you're updating your models sort of in ways they're a little bit hard to articulate maybe, but you're
Mhm.
getting a lot of value out of all this information that you're taking in.
Yeah, and it's fun.
Yeah.
Like I can just do it for hours. It's just so fun.
That's awesome. It sounds like you read really fast based on what you were saying. You the information you take in like what was it, like an hour and a half in the morning?
Yeah. I mean, to be clear, like it is not diligent reading of
Sure.
like every word. It is just like skimming everything. But yeah, I just enjoy it.
This is
So
way better than doom scrolling though. My sense is that you make a pretty wildly efficient use of your time actually. It's a little terrifying.
oh man, I don't know. I mean, I can consume it, but like I don't know about efficient. Like
Mm.
if you judge me by like, oh, okay, cool. Like so like how many customers do you have? Like what's your like or like
Yeah. Okay.
I can consume stuff. Still working on the actually like, you know, making that into the, you know, into something that like I can point to and be like, see, I did things.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I don't, yeah.
Sounds like you're on a good track to me, but I don't
Oh, thank you.
know.
I think so
um,
too.
so
But yeah.
oh yeah. Okay, so completely unrelated, but somewhat relevant to living situations. How do you feel about pets? Do you have any allergies? Are you open to having them? Pets, not allergies.
Oh my gosh. So this is, this is, oh my gosh. This actually causes me a lot of stress thinking about, not a lot,
Mm.
just like mild topical stress, to be clear. But like my thing about pets is that I like dogs and cats and pets. Like I, you know, like I see like a cute cat, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're so cute, blah blah blah. Like I have what feels like very like innate, like yes, pets are cute, like pets are nice, we like pets.
Mhm.
Um, at the same time, like I just have no desire to own one. Like it's just for a number of reasons. And I could like gush about this too, but like the two important and also like truthfully, technically, am I allergic to dogs and cats? Yes,
Oh.
technically, I am. But it's actually a mild allergy, and I don't really like factor it into my decision making at
Mhm.
all. 'Cause, like, at the end of the day, if I liked a cat and I wanted a cat, but I was allergic, I would get one anyway.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know. But like what it really is I don't know, like I've had pets, I've grown up with pets, and like you have them, and then like after a decade and some change, like they die. And that sucks. And like going through that, like, I don't know. It's just if I'm gonna like pour that much investment into something, like I want it to be like a human that has a chance that it will, live with me for decades and decades,
Mhm.
right? Whereas a pet is just like a blip in life, right? Like you go through their entire life cycle and you could go through like a whole bunch of different pets in my and I don't
Yeah.
know, it's just like I'd rather like why can't I just like pour my energy and then get to know, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's just short term for me. That's the first thing. The second thing is I would rather spend my time with humans, to be honest. Like I don't want to have to, you know, worry about like constantly finding dog sitters so that I can go to my social events. I don't want to have to worry about like I don't know, it's just like all this stuff and like yeah, like I love being around pets and like I've had bonds with animals, but like I just wouldn't want to own one. Like you know what I mean? Like I could just if I am going to have that kind of like dedication to where like I have to spend like that much time and energy and resources, I want it to be in a human, like a kid,
Mm.
right?
Do you want kids?
Yeah.
Nice. Do you want like? Do you know how many roughly?
Um, at least two.
Mhm.
Ideally, like 2 to 4 would be nice. But yeah, like at least two would be fine. It depends. I just for me, my thing with kids is that I feel like so many. Oh my gosh, I don't know if this is controversial, but like I feel like so many parents like shoot themselves in the foot when it comes to kids. Like I know a lot of like single parents who are miserable because like they have no village, like they have no support network. They don't like trust people, so like they're very wary about like who can babysit, blah blah blah. And as a result, like at least from the outside looking in, like they're miserable. Like they have like all their time is spent like around, their kids and they don't have enough time to themselves. Like they don't have enough time to do anything they want. And, they're kind of just treading water.
Mhm.
And like, do I want kids? Yeah, but like not if it's gonna be like that. Like I want to, make sure that it's in an environment that's like there's a village, like I'm around people I trust and love. Like we're all ideally raising kids at the same time. Like we can swap babysitting around. We can still have a life to ourselves, but at the same time we can still provide like a really nice network and community for the kids too.
Mhm.
So the answer to do I want kids is yes in those circumstances. But like otherwise, like no, I wouldn't want to have kids.
That makes sense. Do you feel like your current social network seems like a place where this would plausibly be possible? Then,
Oh yeah, 100%.
nice.
Um, mostly.
Mhm.
In the so many caveats. So like right now, my friend, my I mean, most of my friend groups, like they're all like either married and actively trying,
Mhm.
or they're married and they're like, if it happens, it happens.
Mm.
Or they're in like basically all of my friends are, in some very committed relationship. So kids are on the precipice, right?
Mhm.
Like hypothetically, like if I did have a significant other, then I would try and time it so that we all had kids at the same time.
Mm.
The only thing that kind of makes it annoying is that they all live in different parts of town. Like some live in north, some live west, some live south. And so it's like, yeah, like I ostensibly like I have a community, but they're just so like fragmented.
Yeah.
And ideally I would live in a situation like I'm sure you've heard of like Fractal in New York
Yeah.
City, right? Like something like that, right? Where we're all very close and we're having kids and yeah.
That sounds sick, actually. So, are you pretty like settled in Austin? Then it sounds like.
Um Surprisingly not really.
Hmm.
Um I do like my family is here and like all of my close friends are here. But at the same time, like I also have a lot of people that, I'm close to that like live other places, right? Like
Right.
I don't know, like Brooke, for example. Like she's great
Yeah.
and she lives in San Francisco. And like it's very plausible that, if I got like a job offer in San Francisco or whatever,
Mm.
that like, yeah, I would heavily consider that because like I have people like Brooke and like other people that live in San Francisco that it's like, okay, I'll just drop, into that social network, and then, there you go.
Okay,
Um,
nice.
so yeah, like basically anywhere that I don't know has good people. Like I guess I don't know, not to sound like a cliche, but like wherever potential family slash like a good supportive social network could be is where I would go.
That seems like a good like metric, I guess. I don't know. This isn't. I guess I haven't thought about it in those terms, though it sort of seems obvious when you say it that way. Like, I think a lot of people have really strong opinions about like city or countryside or this type of thing, or like
Mhm.
what types of things are on offer in the place that they're going to that aren't necessarily just like, do I have a good support network there, or do I think I could build one quickly?
Mhm. That's my number one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like weather is like it's cool, but it's like the cherry on top. Same thing with a lot of other peripheral stuff. For me, it's just like that's like 80% of the reason I would move somewhere is if there was like a at least like a handful of people that are like, yo, like these are my people.
Okay,
Because if that's
awesome.
the case, then yeah, we're good.
Cool. And when you think about like the sorts of partners you'd want to date, like would they be pretty extroverted as well? Like do you prefer to like go out and do a bunch of things with them, or is it more important to have somebody to like chill with at home?
Oh, this is okay. So this is another area where I struggle and causes me like topical stress is like I've thought a lot about that.
Mm.
Um, and my conclusion, not even that it's even close to conclusive, but like my conclusion about that is I don't know, like some of that stuff kind of feels like the weather. Like it feels like yeah, like it has an impact, but it's not the like highest order bit slash the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, the most important thing is like do we make a good team? Like are you a curious person? Are you self-aware? Are you kind? Um, like a lot of stuff like that. It I don't know. It feels like obvious, and it feels like yeah, like that's isn't that what everybody wants? Like I'm just stating like redundant information because like everybody wants that stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it's like there's something to be said for saying it out loud. Like that to me, those are the most important things. Um, and then after that, it's like, oh, okay, well, like, are we aligned on like a lot of the the compatibility factors, right? Like, do we both want kids, monogamous relationship, da 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 da. And then after that, what was your question again?
Now I don't remember. Let's see. Well, oh no, why is my brain doing this? Let's see. Did I even have it written down? No, it was not. It was not one that was just on the list. Okay, what were we talking about? Right. Wait, what? No, what was the question?
It was something to the effect of like, what do you want in a partner? I believe.
Uh yeah, oh, I was kind of roughly asking like is it more important that you like is this somebody you would want to go out and do a bunch of your more extroverted activities with, or is it all right if they're more introverted? Is it somebody you'd want to spend a bunch of time at home with? I guess what kind of how would you see your day to day, or it sounds like this almost doesn't this is not the main ish like the main priority.
Yeah, I would say it's one of those things where as long as you're not an outlier in either direction, like it's probably fine.
Nice.
Um, like if you want to stay at home all day, every day, that would be a problem. If you wanted to be out all day, every day, that would be a problem.
Mm,
But like, I don't know, if you're somewhere in between, then it's probably like totally reasonable that we could come to some arrangement that makes us both happy. At
okay,
least I
nice.
suspect.
What about things like I like drinking or drug use or like smoking and things like this?
Ooh, oh, that's a good question. Okay, so for me, Um, I don't really care to do basically any of that. Um, I don't have any problem with it. I just don't like it just doesn't interest me.
Mhm.
Um, like for example, smoking pot, like I've tried it a few times and like there's no like euphoric effect. It's just mostly just disorienting.
Oh
And
no.
I'm like, I don't really care about this.
Mhm.
And let's see. I don't know. Like for example with alcohol, it's it's cool. Like I'll drink it and like it is noticeably like oh like this is I feel a little bit more free and like it's nice. But at least to me, the cons usually outweigh the pros. Like whenever I, am sober, like I just feel like kind of like low energy.
Mhm.
And if I drink too much, then like the entire next day is just like gone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's just so much of a day to just burn for like a few hours of like fun. I don't know.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's worth it, but most of the time it isn't. So like I drink very occasionally, and honestly, like if I could just press a button and like alcohol would just disappear off the face of the earth, and I just like I wouldn't have to tell anybody, like I could just press it, I would totally fucking press it. Like, yeah, like just overall, just I would rather it be gone.
As
Um,
long as you weren't doing it retroactively for like earlier stages of history, I think I'm on board with this.
yeah, for sure. Just from now
It
on,
had a
like,
great function for a while there.
yeah. So I don't know. I probably could not be with somebody who like drank every day.
Mhm.
Um, I think for me, the most important fundamental point that like we're aligned on is like this is a tool and it has downsides, and we need to be intentional about it.
Yeah.
As long as like we're both on that page, then I think we're fine. Um, yeah, I don't know, but I guess like not somebody who drinks like every day, but like people drink and it's fine, right? Like people have a glass of wine with dinner or whatever. Like I don't care.
Mhm.
As long as it's not like, oh, I just gotta have my alcohol. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then it's kind of a problem. Or yeah, I don't know. Hopefully that cohesively answered.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be nice. I like the ideal would be like I date somebody who just doesn't do those things at all.
Mhm.
Um, so that way, like I just don't have it around and I don't think about it, and like I just don't do it.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know. Like it doesn't really matter. Like it's very irrelevant to me. It's far more important to me that you don't have a problem with it, and you're not dependent on it, and like you're very aware that it has downsides and it does impact your health and longevity and all that other
Yeah.
stuff. Like as long as that's there, like even if you like drink a few times a week or whatever, like I don't really care. Like as long as we're just aligned. Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And then what about like smoking like cigarettes? Is that an issue?
Oh yeah, it's
Okay.
definitely an issue. I'm not totally sure it's a deal breaker.
Mhm.
I think it is, but like I don't know. At least the way I think about it is if I imagine somebody who's like a really good match for me, like chemistry, compatibility, blah blah blah, but she also smokes, I could see a world where I'm like, fine.
Mm. Okay.
Um, but overall, I would very, very much prefer to not date somebody who smoked cigarettes or, tobacco of some kind.
I imagine in the year of our Lord 2024, this is not usually an issue, but it
Yeah.
seems like a question that's still asked, and every so often, like somebody does actually smoke a fair amount and stuff, so it somewhat matters. But I think I had oh yeah, other potential like deal breaker types of things maybe. Like, do you have strong opinions about like politics or religion or anything along these lines?
Um, well, I guess religion is easier to answer.
Mhm.
Um, I am, I think that the term is agnostic. Like, I think I'm not convinced that like modern religions are like the thing that is true. Like there's a lot I could get into that, but I'll skip that. Like there's a lot of reasons I'm like, I don't know if that's the thing. But at the same time, I'm not like the type of person that's like, yeah, like this is all just totally meaningless. Like we're just rocks floating in space. This is all random. There's no deeper meaning behind anything. Like that also doesn't feel right to me. Like I think that I don't know, like at the end of the day, we're here and like something created us and something had to create that, I think. I don't know. Like, then we start getting into like multi-dimensional type then we that's out of my pay grade. The point
Okay.
is the point is I think that like there's probably some level of intelligence. I don't know if I'd call it like intelligent design. Like it could be somebody who just like flicked something in the beginning and like it all chaotically emerged into us. But I don't know. I think that there probably is some deeper meaning, some deeper like top down kind of. I don't know. Like that feels more true. I have no evidence, but that feels more true to me. So that's like my spiel on religion. Uh, as far as politics go, I have so much trouble like labeling myself in this particular category because I don't know, like there's pros and cons, there's trade-offs, there's all sorts of like things from like different parties that I agree with and disagree with. Like I don't know, I guess if I had to like broadly define my politics, um it'd be something like yeah, like maximize freedom, like make sure that nobody like everybody has bodily autonomy, make sure that everybody has like all the autonomy that is like feasible for society to work. But also at the same time like don't let people do things that harm people. But at the same time uh I don't know, like let the free market work. Fuck rent seeking, fuck like monopolies, fuck like crony capitalism, like all that blah blah blah. But at the same time, I don't know, like some regulations are good, but some are bad. Um, I'm trying to say something that like doesn't sound wishy washy. But
I know what you mean though. It's like, yeah, I
but
mean, you're essentially moderate, it sounds like.
yeah, like something like that, like
Yeah.
something. I don't know, like I don't want to caveat everything to oblivion, but at the same time, like I don't know, like do whatever maximizes good for people
Mhm.
is kind of like how I feel about it.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Are there like I guess like levels of religiosity or political opinions or anything like this that would make it hard for you to date somebody? Or preferences you have about how you would raise your kids in these respects?
Oh yeah. So to answer the first question, um, to me, it's not uh, like I don't really require that you believe a certain thing. For me, it's more about like, do you have the epistemic humility? In the sense that like, I don't know. And I realize this is totally like counter to like what religions tell you.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I would expect if I were dating somebody and like hypothetically she were like Christian, I would expect to be able to say like, hey, like you could be wrong about that, right? Like because we have no evidence and because it is a feeling based thing and a faith based thing, like it's entirely possible like you could like this could be made up.
Mhm.
You know that, right? And as long as she's like, yeah, I could be wrong, but it feels right, then it's like okay, like we can work with that. But I don't know. It's like the openness to change, openness to like gathering new evidence and then reformulating your point of view. Like as long as you have that, then I think, you know, combined with like the humility of like, here's what I know, here's what I know that I don't know. I don't know. Like that to me, that's the most important thing.
Mhm.
Um, I guess obviously, like if your religion means like, hey, like we can't do this very specific thing, and it's very important that we can't do this specific thing, and that specific thing happens to be like very normal to me and very like pivotal to my life, then like obviously it's not going to work.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't know. Other than that, what can I say that's not wishy washy? I don't know. Because I don't know. I feel like I'm not really like putting my feet anywhere on something like solid. Like I feel like I'm just like I don't know, maybe.
This seems fair though. I think a lot of people are sort of like not crazy like committed in some particular direction and what they're looking for is somebody who has a kind of similar mindset about it or within some small number of degrees of this like level of openness basically.
Mhm.
Like there is a
I,
big difference between having some feelings in some direction or sort of believing something and like being like that's my identity or like I this is a sacred thing to me.
yeah, yeah, and like I also it is simultaneously. I feel it's important to have strong opinions,
Mhm.
even if they're based on little evidence, even if like you could change them in the future. Like I think it's still important. Like for example, like there's a lot of stuff that I'm not sure about, but at the same time, like I think like the abortion laws are stupid,
Mhm.
right? Um, like I even if there's like some level of like morality with respect to like, I don't know, like killing like uh you know, unborn children and whatever, I still think at the same time like the government shouldn't be involved in that. Like it's a very personal decision.
Yeah.
And so it's stuff like that that's like, yeah, like I'll take a firm, you know, foot in the ground and be like, no, like that's not okay.
Okay, yeah.
Um, so it's I don't know. I'm kind of like rambling at this point, but yeah, basically, you know, be open, be humble, but at the same time, like for things that you believe are true, you know, stand behind them.
Mhm.
Like that's the core thesis of like my politics and religion.
Do you tend to like to have sort of intellectual debates with partners?
um, when I can, yeah,
Okay, yeah.
I like to. I just don't like doing it if we're not on the same page about like how to have like a productive discussion.
Yeah, okay. So like it has to be clear that you're both having fun or there's a goal or something and you're not just getting irritated or
Yeah, it has to be the kind of thing where like we have to set the stage correctly.
Mhm.
Like if we're both having fun, then we can have fun. But also at the same time, like, you know, if you come at me and be like, "Hey, like I want to try and convince you of this."
Mhm.
That's totally fine too.
Cool.
But like at the same time, if you have like a secret agenda to like try and convince me and you're not like you don't really care to listen to like how I feel about it, like you're just trying to like replace your my belief with yours and you don't tell me that,
Yeah.
that's a problem.
Okay, that makes sense.
But like, yeah, I like, I don't know. It's like an iron sharpens iron kind of thing.
Hell
I,
yeah.
I like as long as like those things are prefaced, and also as long as it's like, as long as you're not trying to like demean, as long as we're not trying to demean like either one or like marginalize like the other person's experiences,
Yeah.
then like I'm good. Like for example, like if I say I feel like blah blah blah, then like you can't tell me I'm wrong.
Right.
But if I say, um, I think it is the case that blah blah blah, like you're totally welcome to be like, oh, actually, I think it's the case that blah blah blah, and like here's my evidence. You know, like
Mhm.
that's fine. But I don't know. Like I was watching a podcast the other day, and they had this neat definition for emotional abuse, which I really liked, which was basically emotional abuse is one of two things. Either you are telling somebody that they're not allowed to feel a certain way, or you are holding somebody else responsible for your emotions and feelings.
Ooh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, whoa, that really resonates. So now I take that and I apply it to like debates and stuff, right? Like you can't tell me that I'm wrong for feeling a certain way,
Right.
even if that feels like incredibly wrong to you. You are also allowed to feel that way, but like we have to coexist with those feelings, like
Mhm.
both of us. And we also have to make sure like, you know, like you can't be saying stuff like, you made me feel this way. It's like, you know, even if that is the cause and effect, like ultimately, like we should all like take responsibility for our feelings kind of thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, got super derailed.
No, this is I think pretty interesting and valuable actually.
Yeah, I think so too.
um okay, yeah. So it seems like you're not conflict averse, but you're down to have, you know, like a sort of healthy level of conflict, but keep it well within respectful bounds basically.
Um, I actually still am pretty conflict
Oh,
averse.
really?
To be quite honest,
Okay.
conflict does still terrify me.
Mhm.
I'm willing to do it, like because obviously, like you have to.
Yeah.
But I still don't like it. Like I still, uh, like again, kind of going to back to the like the cold and distant family and
Mm.
stuff like that. Like my family didn't really handle conflict very well, and as a result, like when I think about having conflict with somebody, like there's still a big part of my nervous system that's like, hey, like if you have conflict, people are going to hate you.
Yeah.
Or like people are going to, you know, like be very mad at you and, you know, uncontrollable, like crazy things are going to happen. So like you should avoid conflict. Like my nervous system still tells me all of that.
Mm.
Um, Not as much now, just, you know, through again, various modalities like therapy, journaling, like being very intentional about interactions, learning to communicate better, blah blah blah. Those things like have definitely helped, but there is still like a very like large part of me that's like, I don't know, for whatever reason, it's hard to beat out of me.
I
Like,
understand.
yeah. Anyway, so like, yes, I am conflict averse. I'll do it. I won't like it,
Mhm.
but let's see. What was the first? What was your question again?
I think that answered it. I'm curious actually because you mentioned your family. If are you familiar with the like the ask culture versus guest culture
Oh, one of my
distinction?
favorite subjects. Yes,
Excellent. Are you? It sounds like were you raised in like more of a guest culture?
definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. And then do you find that's still what you're more comfortable in, or is it easier to get along with people who are more ask culture?
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Guest culture sounds more familiar and therefore more comfortable in a lot of cases. Ask culture is easier to operate in. I prefer to be in ask culture.
Mhm.
That being said, I think of it like a cache, in the sense that I don't know. It's like a. Have you ever heard of like the four stages of competence?
No, I don't think so.
So there's unconscious incompetence, like
Oh,
you have
okay.
no idea what you're doing at all. You have conscious incompetence, like you kind of know what you're doing, but like you don't really, like you know what you don't know, right? Like it's huge. And then you have like conscious competence, which is like, okay, like I know what I'm doing, like I can delineate the space in which I can operate,
Mhm.
and like anywhere outside of these bounds, like I know not to expect any kind of like expertise here, but like if I'm in this boundary, like I'm good, right? And then there's like unconscious competence, which is like I'm effortless, like I can do things. It looks so easy, and I'm just like this so good at the thing, right?
Mhm.
So the way I think about like ask culture and guest culture is it's almost like a mid-twit meme evolution. Like you start in guest culture and you're like, I don't know, like just flailing around, like you don't know the rules at all. And then like you kind of like move into ask culture where it's like, okay, like I'm gonna be very specific about like where I flail around. Like I'm gonna ask things, I'm gonna test things, I'm gonna establish like what the culture is, like how the communication works here. But then after a while, you kind of go back to guest culture, where it's like, hey, like we already know everything. It's unconscious competence. Like we already kind of know how like that person's gonna feel. Like we don't even have to ask. Like it's very like kind of, I don't know, like unwritten. And so like ultimately, I think like towards the very end of like expertise and the very end of like a cohesive community, it kind of goes back to guest culture because everything is unwritten.
I've talked to a couple of people about this recently, and this is like a very different spin on it, but it's everybody has kind of the same take, which kind of reminds me of what you were talking about earlier with roommates, where it's like it's like the worst thing is incompetent guest culture, and then the next best thing is like basically any ass culture, and then the best thing is competent guest culture.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah, no, that totally makes sense. That I've kind of haven't really thought about it much, but that's basically where I've landed as well.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's finding the people who are good at guest culture that's the tricky thing, but um yeah, so when you're I guess maybe this might not be so specific to romantic relationships, but like what do you find are the most like do you have like failure modes you feel like are pretty common, or like what would you think what would make it difficult to live with you, or what problems tend to come up for you in any type of
Ooh.
relationships really, but especially romantically?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I definitely do have failure modes for sure. um, so one thing that I had to like learn that still doesn't feel natural to me. Um, and like I can kind of control it for the most part, but at the same time, like it still feels like I'm a wolf in sheep's clothing. Um, that's kind of an aggressive metaphor. It's not anyway. Enough of the preamble. There's a few things. The first thing is like basically like listening to people. like full stop.
Mhm.
I'm very used to well, okay, at first I listened to people kind of like how I read, which is like skimming, which is just like I'm just kind of like doing my own thing in my own head and words are flying at me and like I kind of have like a pulse on it and I'm only listening for things that are important. Otherwise, like I'm tuning everything else out.
Yeah, I do this.
Um, and that doesn't make people feel good. I've struggled a lot with like, okay, well, I want to listen to you. Um, my neurology does not want to listen to you
Mhm.
unless you say something interesting, in which case I'll tune in. But at the same time, like, you know, talking especially is like language itself is like a noisy medium, and like talking itself is like even more noisy. So pound for pound, like the information that's exchanged from people's mouths, like ad hoc off the cuff, is not going to compete at all with like something that's like polished, like a book or like a tweet. Words are hard, or anything like that.
Mm.
So I had to kind of like teach myself to be more. This sounds is this sociopathic? I had to teach myself to like be more interested in people and there's like a lot of like different like hacks that I did for that. Um, like one of them is like being like, hey, like try and predict what they're gonna say next. Like turn it into a game. And then there's other stuff like, well, actually like look at their face and like see if you can extract other information besides what they're saying, like to try and form a better picture. Like there's all sorts of like little stuff that I've taught myself, but at the same time, like I'm I don't know, like, if you probe a little bit deeper, you'll realize that, like, those are tricks, and,
Yeah.
like, it doesn't come naturally to me. So as a result, the failure mode is that, um, like, for some stuff that you say, like, I'll be normal, like, I'll have a very good recollection of, like, things that are important to you, like, remembering, like, anniversaries and stuff like that.
Mm.
But then there's, like, random glaring holes. And it like catches people by surprise like you seriously like that's so important to me like how could you not know that
Uh-huh.
and so I mean I don't know like maybe it is the case that like on some level I am like just a selfish individual and like I really don't care about other people and like I'm just masquerading around as somebody who does care about other people
I
like
feel this.
that's like one of my fears right. Or maybe I do and I'm just like bad at it, or I don't know.
It
But point is that it's definitely a failure mode. Um, let's see, what's another failure mode? I think another failure mode is that like I'm very mood driven with the things that I want to do.
Mhm.
Like I only have a routine because I need it for me to live life and survive and like pay bills and be an adult. Like if I don't have a routine, then like my life falls apart. So I have a routine not because I want one, but because I need one. But like in general for events and stuff, like I see the value in scheduling things, but I'm very last minute with like the things that I authentically want to do.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of impossible to predict like if I will want to do something at that moment.
Mhm.
So I don't know, like if you're the type of person that like wants me to do something with you and you also want me to enjoy it and you also want to plan it, it might be a problem. Cause like I am totally willing to compromise and be like, hey, like I will do this with you, like you have my word, like we'll do it.
Sure.
But like if you want me to enjoy it, like I can't guarantee that because I might not feel like doing it the moment of at all.
Mhm. Does it
Um,
do you find it works sometimes better if it's brought up to you in a more spontaneous way rather than planned ahead?
yes,
Yeah, I feel
100%.
this. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, same thing with, like, phone calls and stuff too.
Oh yeah.
Never tell me you're gonna call me at a certain time, just call me.
Yeah, yeah, it's so much it feels burdensome to me kind of, or it's like I there's an opportunity for me to disappoint somebody if I know something's going to happen in advance. But I also
Mhm.
have a hard time and like sometimes get quite stressed out if I can't plan out things beforehand if I
Yeah,
have to go out. This feels like like both of the things that you're talking about actually sound kind of like typical sort of ADHD or something types
yeah,
of like personality things where if you're with somebody who is similar or is familiar with this, it's like, okay, you can work around it, or you know which, like, I mean, people still get tripped up by the thing where it's like, oh yeah, I completely don't think about like this category of things, or like I'm good in these areas, and I am expected to be good in these areas. Even if you're both ADHD, people get tripped up by this. But I think if you're able to almost like tell people in advance that this is a thing that can happen, it makes it a lot easier, because they can just stop and be like, oh wait, is that what's going on right now? It's not that he doesn't care, it's that his brain just occasionally randomly deletes information.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. I think that yeah, I guess yeah, that's oh my gosh, so many thoughts. Yeah, that yeah, I guess like the ADHD thing, like I do have an Adderall prescription, and I have gone to the like a psychiatrist, and I just I like out of curiosity, I was like, I wonder if I have something, right?
Hmm.
And so like he just starts like grilling me, like interviewing me, blah 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 blah. And then he like asked me some question, and then I answered it, and he's like, "That's the most ADHD thing I've heard on the planet. Holy
Wait,
crap!"
what was the answer?
Well, he asked me about like I think it was something like my test taking strategies and
Uh-huh.
like habits and stuff like that. And he said something like, "Yeah, so like what is it like? You have a test coming up. Like, how does it work? What do you do? What happens? How do you feel? You know, that kind of thing." And I explained to him that basically, if I have a test coming up, then I will like I'll do the thing that I told you I'll do, right? Like I'll just like have everything like up in front of me and just like kind of like sit here and stare at all of it. And if it's something I'm not like innately interested in, then I will purposefully understudy for it, so that that way whenever I take the test, I'm actually like motivated to like do the problems.
Yep.
Because like otherwise, like if I know everything, then I will be so bored, and I'll take the test and I will be floppy and I won't pay attention, and then I'll get things wrong.
That
So it's
totally
actually
makes sense.
better for me to like, be a little bit challenged, like a lot challenged, and be like actually engaged.
Hmm.
Like, oh my gosh, like a lot of my math tests, like I learned so many things while I took the test
Damn.
because I figured it out like during the test. And I told him that, and I was like, that's
Yeah.
ADHD as fuck. So, I mean, I guess I have it.
Hmm.
I kind of like I still kinda like resist labeling myself that way for like a number of reasons, which we could get into. But yeah, I don't know. Like I guess I have it doesn't really feel like I have it, but I mean, then again, like I haven't inhabited the mind of other
Yeah.
people. So I don't really know. It feels normal to me, but
It seems
yeah.
like it's somewhat useful in that, I mean, yeah, with or without a diagnosis or a label, it feels like there's a type of pattern matching that I can do to lots of other people I know and get along with, where somebody who's not familiar with this type of thing would be like, "What the fuck is this person doing?" Or like, "Why are they doing? Like, why are they acting like this?" And it's just like, "Oh no, 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 no. I like it completely makes sense."
Yeah, most people don't understand when I tell them that.
Yeah, I feel like most people I know are in the same boat. So it's I'm like maybe too aggressively selecting my social circles for people who are ADHD or autistic or both, whether or not they're like in diagnosable ranges, but it's just easier. I don't
What a lovely bubble.
know. Do you find you like get along like better with people, or I don't know, do you get along reasonably well with like more normal people, or
I get along with both. The texture of the interaction is very different.
Mm.
With if we were to categorize it as like neurotypicals versus not. Um, with neuroatypicals, it's like it can be really fun because like I don't know, within a few minutes of talking, you're like, oh, you're on my wavelength. Like we're both like distracted and like just brimming with thoughts.
Yeah.
Like this is gonna be like we're gonna be playing ping pong and we're gonna be throwing like 7 ping pong balls like all at the same time, and it's gonna be great.
Mhm.
So like I don't know, you can kind of tell when that's gonna like for example, like this
Yeah.
right here, right? And like I have conversations like that, and it's like, oh, like my brain is hyper stimulated. I'm not going to bed for another 4 hours at least. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so like there is that. But at the same time, with normal people, it's I'm not gonna say it's worse. It's just different,
Mm.
because like there's a lot of other like it has its pros and cons, right? Like if you talk to somebody who's like neuroatypical, and especially if they're not like cognizant of like how long they've been talking and like remembering to make sure to like look at the other person's facial reactions. Like, am I talking too much? Like, are they enjoying this? Like, is this relevant to what we were just talking about? Like, you don't want to just bring up some random crap that is not relevant to the conversation because now everybody you're talking to has to offload their mental working memory and
Yeah.
input your working memory, and it's just a pain in the ass, right? Like you need to let conversations drift organically so that people have time to like reset their memories and like recombobulate to like the new subject. You know what I mean? Like, and by the way, like what I just said, didn't understand that at all until like a few years ago. Like
Oh, okay.
when somebody explained to me, like I used to think like, why do we have to stay on topic? Like I don't get it.
Yeah,
Like,
no, I'm learning this right now, so
and it turns out it's because people don't like just randomly like dumping their working memory so that they can like reassess to like whatever your random topic is. You know what I mean?
Is that what it's like having a functional working memory? It's effortful.
I guess. But like
Interesting.
it is the case that like that can happen with like neuroatypical people because
Mhm.
like it can be disorienting. It's like what the fuck? Like I don't want to talk about that. Like I was talking about this, or you know, even if it is another thing that I want to talk about, it's like, but wait, like I still like this feels unfinished, and you know, we've already loaded all of this into the chamber. Like,
Mhm.
why not shoot the gun? You know?
Yeah.
And, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I guess with anything to do with neurotypicals, it sort of goes in either direction, right? Either it's like you're like completely ready to go to a totally different subject and it's hard to remember to try to make sure everybody else can gradually be dragged along with you or whatever to like to shift things naturally, or the conversation naturally shifts to something else and you're like, no, I still want to talk about this other thing for the next 3 hours. Like, what are you people doing?
yeah. It's I feel like it's great if you have neuroatypical people who all have like the same broad interest because
Mhm.
you know then that works very well. But if you have neuroatypical people with like very different interests, then it's like really like pulling teeth in
Yeah.
that. At least that's my theory. I generally speaking, like most of the neuroatypical people I've talked to, like I've had a lot of common interests with them.
Mhm.
I haven't met somebody who's like my atypical diametric opposite as far as interests.
Okay.
So I'd be very interested in testing that
Do you
in a
know
way.
what that would look like? What would you imagine this would look like?
Oh my gosh. It's really hard for me to think of something that like I could not be interested in.
As I suspected.
Like, like there's I don't know, like if people are doing it, they're doing it for a reason,
Mhm.
and that reason is probably like interesting. Like anytime somebody is doing something for a reason, like I don't know, there's just like some like underlying baseline level of interest. I don't
Mhm.
know. But I don't I'm trying to think of things that would be just totally uninteresting to me. Um I don't know. You know what? Actually, I thought of something. Poetry. I just have no interest in poetry.
Same.
That is something. I feel like I could get interested in it if like you were to explain to me like why people find it interesting, blah blah blah. But
Mhm.
like as of right now, like no interest.
Okay, yeah.
Um, I this sounds sacrilegious to say this. Architecture. I don't care.
Is that sacrilegious? Do a lot of people care about architecture?
I don't know. Maybe it's again. Maybe it's my bubble. Maybe it's like my Twitter bubble. But like a lot of people like talk about how like I don't know, like they travel and then they see like oh my gosh, like Roman architecture or like oh my gosh, cathedrals or oh my gosh, like blah blah blah. Like I don't really care except stained glass windows.
Oh,
I love stained glass windows. Like that's
shiny.
yeah, it's shiny and like there's a lot of history behind it. But then I don't. Anyway, I
Yeah,
don't
I'm
know.
sure if you got into architecture, you would find all kinds of stuff to be excited about. But yeah, I get that. Do you like to travel?
Ooh, so that's a good. Okay. Ooh, okay. So the short answer is yes and no.
Okay.
The longer answer is uh, I like traveling, but not necessarily to see the sights and not for long periods of time.
Okay.
Like, I don't really care about the sights necessarily. I care more about the history and the people of it. And like the history I can read about online.
Mm.
The people, like, I'll just fly over and I'll see you and we'll hang out and then I'll leave. Like, as far as like the actual place itself, like,
Okay.
um, I don't know. Like, I don't identify with a lot of people who, like, when they say they like traveling and I ask them why, they're like, oh my gosh, like, I love like going to different places. Like, I don't really care that much about like the places. And also, I don't like traveling for long periods of time because the longer I travel, the more it undoes my habits. And then when I get home, the more I have to work to re-implement them.
Yeah.
And if I'm gone for like a week, then it's like, oh, well, now I have to re-implement my life for 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a hangover, right? Like a few hours of fun, but I waste the whole day afterward. And then with travel, it's like a week of fun, but then I waste a few weeks afterward.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say like no to long-term travel. It's just, it has to be something that's like worth it.
Yeah.
And I feel like my threshold for like what travel is worth it is like a lot higher, especially the longer the travel is than like most people's.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you're not gonna want to go to like Paris to see the Eiffel Tower and the all that type of shit.
Yeah, especially for like a week. Like, nah, I'd rather like stay home and like hang out with people and do my side projects.
Okay, yeah. Oh yeah, what kind of side projects? I don't think I've asked about that yet. Maybe that's a detour, but this seems important.
I mean, it's at least important to me.
And it is important.
There we go. So one thing that I'm doing right now, I currently have a fixation on marketing. So I've been inhaling like all sorts of like copywriting books.
Nice.
To just like learn like how do you get people's attention, like how do you keep it, blah blah blah. And like I'm very interested in like a lot of people hate marketing, right? But it's a necessary thing. And so I'm very interested right now in defining very precisely like what is slimy marketing and what is good marketing. And also what is effective marketing and what isn't effective. And like there's all sorts of like crazy techniques and things and vocabulary that like marketers use and do and all this other stuff. And like I have this Figma board that has a gargantuan amount of like vocabulary and techniques and studies and examples and templates and like all this other stuff. And I'm trying to arrange it in such a way such that there's two spectrums. One spectrum is it slimy or is it good? And I'm trying to put all the techniques on that spectrum. And then another spectrum is sophistication.
Oh.
Meaning like at the very bottom, this could be geared towards anybody. Like this is just universally appealing / universally able to get attention. And then at the very like other end of the spectrum, you have like a very sophisticated market where like this is for like a handful of people on earth and nobody else would be interested in this. And I've discovered that like most marketing books I read have some kind of name for this spectrum, right? Like in Eugene Swartz' Breakthrough Advertising, they call it the customer awareness journey. Like you have somebody who's like problem unaware, like they have no idea they have a problem. Then you have somebody who's problem aware, like they are now know they have a problem. And then they go into solution aware, which is like, oh, I have a problem and I know what solutions could look like. And then there's there's product aware, I believe is the next one, where it's like, okay, like I know what a solution looks like. I know what the space of products look like that could solve my problems are. And then there's finally most aware, which is they are aware of the solution. They are aware of you and that you sell the solution. They just need a final push to purchase.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it's basically like this spectrum, like a journey where you become more sophisticated as a customer. Like you become more educated. You trust the vendor or the merchant more. You trust the service provider. You become more aware of like the shape of your problem, what the solution looks like. You become more sophisticated. And so different copywriting techniques and different marketing techniques apply to different points on that spectrum.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So basically, I'm making a giant grid that is sophistication level and sliminess level.
A political compass.
Maybe for marketing,
Yeah.
maybe. And so like that's how I'm gonna make sense of it. And then I'm gonna put everything on that spectrum and then I'm gonna look at it and be like, does this make sense as a spectrum?
That's
If not, why?
awesome.
Yeah. So that's a side project that I have going on.
That sounds really fun.
It's so fun. Oh my gosh, it's so fun. It's everything that I look at, I ask myself, is this slimy? If so, why?
Yeah.
And so I've been like thinking about all of that stuff, like, you know, the implications of like social proof, scarcity. I don't know. Like, I hate personally when people like say stuff like, you know, if I'm in an email and they have some pitch and it's like, buy now, like, you know, only 2 days left on this offer. It's like, is there really only 2 days or did you just make that up?
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And is that slimy? If so, why? Is it slimy because it's deceptive, or is it slimy because you're just like poking at my reptilian brain?
Yeah.
Or, you know, I'm just thinking about all of this and I'm trying to make sense of all of it.
That sounds really entertaining, actually. Do you have it? I don't actually. I keep hearing people talk about Figma. I don't actually know what this is. Is this like a public thing that other people could look at, or is it private right now? Are you going to release it into the wild at some point?
I hadn't thought about it. To directly answer your question, it is something like I could literally just share a URL with you and it could be like a Google Doc. Is it public? I don't think it is. Maybe it is.
You could totally document this on Twitter. This is the sort of thing that people would be very excited. People would be very excited to follow and read about.
Yeah, you're right.
Bite-sized chunks.
Oh my gosh. And to be clear, like this is a failure mode. Like this is not true. It's just a story I'm telling myself. I'm in the process of replacing it with a better story. I just have not found a better story yet. But with that said, I look like if I pull it up, it's so messy. Like there's just so much to make sense of. And like if I were to try and like build in public or like tweet about it, I just feel like it would be so unintelligible. Like like there's just so, I don't know, like there's so many dots to connect. And like if I were to just take a chunk of it and just throw it as a tweet, I'd have to spend like the entire day like contextualizing it. And by that time I've pulled everything else in anyway.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I wonder if there's a way to just sort of briefly talk about when you notice a connection between two things. Just be like, oh, this is a thing that I've noticed. Or like, yeah, because like I guess it feels like the real problem would be if you got sucked into the process of making the thing public and then weren't actually working on the thing.
Yeah. I don't think that would be an issue for me. I would get pulled back into the actual project itself.
I think it'd be worth trying, and I wouldn't worry too much about being legible. And you know, if people have questions, they'll ask, or maybe nobody will respond because they'll be like, "What is this schizo shit?" But like, I suspect it's more legible than you expect.
Yeah, you're probably right. I think I am underestimating the legibility. Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. You know what? Okay, I'm gonna keep an eye out for just when I see a connection between two things. Nice. Yeah, okay, all right, okay, we're gonna do that.
Yeah, let me know. I might forget to check. So if you're like, nobody's liking this thing, send it to me and I'll be like all over it.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Sick. Okay.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I will do that.
Okay, awesome.
Yes. Yeah. And I guess, that's just one of them.
Oh, sick. Okay. All right. Yeah.
But yeah, like, I don't know, how much time like we want to dedicate or like scope in different ways.
Damn. Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Okay. Maybe I should ask some more of the boring questions, which will probably also spin off into interesting sub things. And then at the end, ask more about additional side projects for whatever period of time you're down to talk to them, or until I get too hungry and have to go eat.
Sounds good. Hit me with the boring stuff.
Okay, let's see. We talked briefly about your family, but like how much do you care about what they think of your partner, and like how involved would you want to sort of mutually be in each other's families, ideally, or if there are deal breakers in this area?
Ooh, okay. So I'm not super close to my family. I'm far closer to like my friends and other social groups. Um, to be honest, I would say, okay, to pick a focal point for your question. I would be totally down. Like my ideal would be if I met somebody who has a big warm family and they just adopt me for
Mhm.
all intents and purposes. Like I'm just gonna join your family now, and like we'll do all holidays at your house or like your parents' house or whatever, um, and like we just pretend I don't have a family. To be
Okay.
honest, to be totally
Fair.
transparent.
Uh,
Um, and yeah, that would be great. If let's see, as far as like kids go, again, like kind of the same thing. Like I would rather them spend like more time around my significant other's family.
mhm.
Um, I have a big family. They are just all in the Northeast, and they are all pretty cold as well. Like not as cold like as my family, like my immediate family, but like generally they're like pretty cold and like I don't really know them that well. And I'm not close to them.
Oh, okay.
And I would just yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I'm pretty flexible. Like whatever, you know, your culture is, like I'll adapt to it. Like I'll wear whatever you want. Like I will follow the traditions and stuff.
Mm.
Um, like as long as there's the understanding that like I am the way I am, like religiously speaking, and
Yeah.
like I can do these gestures. But as long as you understand that, like, you know, it may not mean to me what it means to you.
Okay, that makes sense.
So in that sense, like I'm down.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I don't I forgot your question again.
No, I think you answered it. You're good. I,
Okay,
I keep forgetting the question too, but I know it was on it was on point.
perfect.
Um, yeah, okay, and then let's see. I'm trying to see if there's anything that's like relevant to string together or if we're now just in completely random hopping around territory. I am sorry. Uh,
I'm not.
okay, great. How do you like how do you most naturally show affection and how do you like what sort of shows of affection do you most naturally like read as such, I guess? I guess this is just a love languages question, but
Yeah. Oh man, that's such an interesting question too. So which one do I start with? How do I like receiving affection? I'm kind of bearish on love languages, to be honest.
okay.
Like, I think that I think they're like Myers Briggsy in the sense that like there's not really a lot of there might be meaning, but like okay, let me caveat that. I'm sure that some people receive and give love in ways more prevalently than others, and some ways are more meaningful than others for different people. Blah blah
Mhm.
blah. Like there's some degree of truth to that, but I think that like this wholesale like strong delineation of like these are my love languages and these are not like I think is I can't really get behind that at least from my personal experience. For me the underlying thing that makes me feel loved is just like attention awareness thoughtfulness like something that gestures at that kind of thing like
Mhm.
I don't know for example like you know if you know that I hate eggs and like you order me food and it normally comes with eggs, but you got them without eggs. Like that makes me feel loved. Same thing with like, I don't know, like if you buy me a gift, it's a lot more meaningful if it's like a thing that I said in passing 3 months ago,
Mhm.
as opposed to like a Starbucks gift card, right?
Yeah.
Like that one doesn't really make me, it makes me feel thought about, but not like loved and seen and that kind of thing.
Mm.
Where the first one does. Um, and I mean, same thing with like, oh my gosh, there's like this tweet I saw maybe a few months ago that said that basically like there's a big difference between asking for a hug, giving a hug, and offering a hug. Like they
Mhm.
all have different energies.
Ooh, interesting. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's so true. And for example, with me, right? Like, uh, there's a like if somebody comes up to me and like it's and they like hug me in the sense of like I want to give you a hug.
Yeah.
Like that is very nice. Whereas like if somebody comes up to me and they're like, I'm depressed, like I need a hug. Like, don't get me wrong, like I'm happy to give one,
Mhm.
but it's a very different energy.
Yeah.
And like, hey, I need a hug, like doesn't necessarily make me feel loved.
Mhm.
It is a request for my love, which again, happy to give, like, you know, if we're close and whatever. But it is very different than like me being given love. And like, you know, that is another way of doing it, right? Um, Massages are a cheat code though, to be honest.
Those
Like,
almost feel universal, really, but yeah.
yeah. Um, so I don't know. Again, this feels like very like wishy-washy. But yeah, I don't know. Like anything that like shows that you care about modeling me correctly in your head.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I feel like that's not the thing that everybody would necessarily prioritize. Even I feel like there's people who are more just about the sort of the like relaxed ambient. I don't know how to describe it, but you know, if it's like if their partner just touches them a lot, this feels just a lot more less, not less personal even. I don't know how to describe it, but it feels like a different category of thing kind of.
100%.
Mm.
Yeah, the intention, the awareness, the desire, like all of that behind the touch matters significantly.
Okay, yeah. Um yeah, and then how do you most naturally show affection for people?
I try and okay, caveat. To be clear, I am bad at this. It kind of comes down to the whole like it references what we talked about.
Mm.
I don't know how long ago it was, but like the like basically like cargo culting listening.
Yeah.
I also feel like to some degree I cargo cult giving affection.
Mhm.
In the sense that like I'll look and I'll see what you respond to, and I'll try and just do more of that.
Okay.
Um, but I try not to make it feel like a push button receive bacon kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I don't want it to be like why aren't you happy
I
kind of
see.
thing.
Yeah, I've put in the correct input. Why is it not working?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes
Um,
sense.
so like again, I'm kind of like showing my cards here. I am very much like cargo culting in this. But at the same time, I don't know. Like I try and it kind of comes back to the whole like give and like try not to have expectations kind of thing.
Mhm.
Like I just like throw spaghetti against the wall, like throw stuff out there. You know, if it feels right, do it.
Mhm.
Um, and you know, sometimes people respond, sometimes they don't. Um, Sometimes like there's a big gap between like what I want to give and what they want to receive.
Yeah.
Um, and in that case, like if I'm very conscious of that gap, then I will like put aside like whatever it is that like I want to throw at them, and it will instead like try and give them what I feel like they want,
Mhm.
but in an authentic as possible way. And usually I'm only able to do that like if I care about the person.
Yeah.
So which means that like if I care about them, then that also usually implies some context about like what is meaningful to them. So oh my gosh, I'm deep off in the rabbit hole again.
It is
How do I show people affection?
yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. Like I like to show people affection in ways that I would like to be shown affection.
Mhm.
I just start there and modify as needed as I get more information about them. And also when I remember to, and whenever I'm not like self-absorbed in my own desires and needs.
Mhm.
I don't know, try and find a happy arrangement and be conscious when I can.
How would you distinguish between cargo culting and doing things with intention? Because to me it feels like this is sort of the same thing actually.
That's a good question. I think you know what it is? Okay. So, you know how when you're talking to customer service people and like there's a bit like you can just tell. Like there's a big difference between somebody who got your email,
Mhm.
read it, thought about it and then replied
Mhm.
versus somebody who has like these like different templates they have here and there and they just like kind of paste together templates and then replace it with your name and
Yeah.
you send the email and you could just tell. I think the difference between cargo culting and intention is basically that. Like, I don't know, like you look at somebody, like the intentional one would be, I look at somebody, I analyze how I think they're feeling, I try and empathize, I try and put myself in their shoes.
Mhm.
I really try and model like who they are, what they want, and then I throw something their way, and then I look at them, and then I update, and I keep rinsing and repeating until eventually I have a good model, and then I can respond appropriately.
Mhm.
Whereas cargo culting in this specific sense is probably something like, well, I guess humans like it when they do this, so I'll throw some of that and
Ah,
see what happens.
so like less personalized, basically.
Yeah, I think like personalized, like it, I don't know. I get the feeling that it gestures at something that's like more complicated,
Mm.
but I think that like personalization is like a really good way of encapsulating like what anti-cargo culting is.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Yeah, because the way you were describing what you do with like to show affection to people sounds like it's pretty personal. Like you're trying to figure out what they specifically like, which sounds
Mhm.
less like the customer service thing, even if it is sort of a I don't
It
know.
might start there.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense. That's sort of like how that you have to start from a model that you then update, right? And the model
yeah.
is going to be pretty vague initially, unless you are I don't know. I guess if you have a specific model, then it could be much more wrong. I don't know. Maybe I'm steel manning this. Maybe because I do the same type of thing, but I feel like this just feels like most people do things like this somewhat automatically or like completely without reflecting. And if anybody reflected on it, it would sort of look like this, is my sense. But maybe I'm wrong.
I get that sense too. I think the difference is maybe my knee-jerk reaction is to say that like I think everybody cargo cults at first,
Mhm.
and the difference is when you get something that works, do you keep refining it?
That makes sense. Yeah. Instead of being like, this worked the one time, so it better keep, like that parent who hasn't updated their beliefs about your interests since you were 8 years old.
Yes,
Okay, yeah,
100%.
checks out. Okay, awesome. All right, let me see if there's a. Oh yeah, when it comes to like communicating with partners, particularly like early in a relationship, how do you feel about like is it important to you to text every day, or do you have strong preferences about communication in this way, or are there things that are difficult for you to do that other people might have strong opinions about?
Ooh, um, I have opinions.
Okay.
So, I actually okay, I have there are actually 2 wolves inside of me, with this specific subject. On one hand, I do believe in, like, moderation. Like, I think that, you know, it's probably reasonable, like, if you I don't know, like, let's say you match on a dating app, you chat a little bit, you meet up, you have a good time, and there's like an unwritten, like mutually established conclusion that like, hey, we might be interested in each other. I would expect to like if we've made plans to hang out again, then like intermittent texting or not, both cases are fine.
Hmm.
But if we haven't established a plan afterward, then I would expect to like, I don't know, text probably every day.
Hmm.
It's like not that I require it, but I would expect it to evolve into that naturally.
Yeah.
Um, because I don't know, at least like in my own experience, when I'm interested in somebody, I wanna text them.
Mm.
And when I'm interested in somebody, even if I'm busy, I text them. So I feel like the same thing roughly applies. Like, I don't know, like if I get if I'm, you know, interested in somebody and we're courting each other and I get uh oh sorry I didn't text back, I was too busy, like too many times,
Yeah.
then it's like you're not interested. At
That
least
makes
that's the
sense.
way I feel about it. Like that's my I don't know. My impression is like the more that happens, like exponentially increases that you're just not that into me. That's what that is.
Hmm.
It has nothing to do with like, oh, like we're adults and blah blah blah. Like, no, if you wanted to text me, you would.
Yeah.
There's a part of me that believes that. But at the same time, I don't have any like specific communication. That's a lie. Um, I do have. How do I phrase this? It's the phone calls thing. That's basically what it comes down to. Like if you're gonna call me, like do it spontaneously.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to plan it. Happy to talk on the phone. I hate planning to talk on the phone.
Okay, yeah.
Same thing applies to dates. Other than that, like, and same thing with like Zoom calls or I don't know, like any kind of synchronous communication,
Yeah.
right? I'm down to do it. It's just I would much prefer it to be spontaneous. Because otherwise it'll kind of stress me out.
Yeah.
And asynchronous communication, like, fuck yeah, like blow my phone up. Like I don't give a crap.
Nice.
Like you can, like yeah, like it. You know, if I'm interested in you, like yeah, flood my dopamine, baby. Like let's go. You can email me, you can call me, or you can text me, like whatever. And yeah, I don't know, like especially in the early stages, in the absence of information, that is one of my biggest indicators to judge how interested I think you are in me, and therefore how much of my attention should I allocate to you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I mean, like obviously it's a dance, right? Like you meet each other and you like iteratively increase the intensity of communication, just, you know, so you play the game properly and like you calibrate each other's expectations properly and blah blah blah. Like there's a number of reasons why I like to do that, but yeah, basically like as long as I don't really care about the medium, but as long as like there's an escalating level of intent for both of us, then like that's where I would like to be.
And then once you're like in something, is it like pretty consistent communication is like what you would prefer, or
well, I guess to kind of like tackle and like kind of what I suspect is an unwritten assumption behind what you're asking. What I think you're getting at is like, so I guess there's kind of like two types of communication, right? Like there's business communication and pleasure communication.
Yeah.
Right? And when I think of pleasure communication, it's like it's a thing that I want to do, right? Like if I'm with you, it's because I like you, I like being around you, I like hearing your voice, I like your thoughts, I like your, you know, your presence, blah blah blah. So I would want us, it's not that I would expect, but I would want to communicate with you. And I would also want you to want to communicate with me. And so if we aren't communicating, but there's a reason for it, then, you know, that's fine. Like, you know, if you're deep off in some rabbit hole, or if you're in like a business trip, like there's a number of reasons why we could be not communicating and it's fine. But like, if there's no reason to, if there's nothing necessarily blocking us, I would like raise my eyebrow about it.
Yeah.
But I also wouldn't expect it. Like, because at that point, like it kind of veers into like business communication, right? Like if there's like problem solving communication, then that's where I expect it, right? Like if, you know, if we're, I don't know, like doing some kind of logistics, planning a trip, or like cleaning the house, or like trying to organize some adult shit, then like, yeah, I would have expectations for like service level objectives.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you should respond within like this amount. But I mean, like, I don't know, I try and I want to minimize those. Like that should just be the kind of thing that very quickly evolves into guest culture.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, my sense is that there's sort of two types of people, maybe roughly, when it comes to texting and this type of thing, or communicating when you're not physically around. And it seems to be like some people feel like it's sort of a clear way to, I don't know, express affection and just kind of, maybe reassure is a strong word for it, but just sort of maintain that kind of like, you know, it's really clear that we still like each other and like this feels really good. And then for other people, it's like a weirdly low bandwidth form of communication that they don't get any real value out of, and they would much rather just like spend more time physically together, kind of. And so sometimes when there's a mismatch, this can cause like confusion and distress unnecessarily.
Yeah, oh my gosh, that's such a great way to articulate that. And now that you've said it, I think I'm the first one.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
But I also understand the second one. Like, I'm also the type of person, like with my really close friends, like we don't text. Like we just go radio silence, and then at some point, like some serendipitous thing will be like, hey, like you want to come to this thing, you want to hang out, blah blah blah. Then we'll hang out and we'll catch up like nothing happened, and it's fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to think about this more, but it does feel texturally different for romantic relationships.
Yeah.
In a way that I would need to think about more. But yes, I like that framing.
Okay, yeah. I think about it a lot because my boyfriend had, like, we're sort of opposite on this thing. So he has a really hard time texting, like just text-based communication doesn't really come naturally to him, and he doesn't get any real value out of it. So he does it to the extent that, like, there's information to be communicated, or he knows that I value it. But he's very much focused on whatever's in front of him. So it's really easy for him to get completely sucked into like a book or something and just like not think to communicate for a day or two. And that I'm like, oh my God, doesn't he not like me? Like, what's happening, kind of thing. And it like kind of took a while to work out what was going on there. And so I think it's like very possible to date across this gap, but it can be a problem, especially early on, if you're not aware of the reason for it. And sometimes not texting just means that they're not interested, like legitimately. So
Oh my gosh, like now that you've said that, I think I'm the worst of both worlds.
oh no.
Because like I'm on the other side, I'm like, why are you not texting me? But I also get sucked in.
But when you come out of it, are you like, oh shit, I'm so sorry? Or are like, okay, yeah. I think that helps a lot. I do this too. Like where I'll like legitimately probably in the same day be like, oh my God, you haven't talked to me in like 12 hours or whatever. And then like I will not look at my phone for like 10 hours after that, and I'll have like 4 missed messages. I think it's fine, but it is useful to kind of like know going into things with somebody probably that this is a sort of minor problem that's going to require non-zero like effort to navigate.
100%.
Anything, I guess, is there anything you think of that when you notice somebody has this feature, you're like, oh no, I've just gotten 10% more stupid?
Ooh, that's a good question. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. The answer is yes.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out like what it is about it. I'm thinking of people, and it's really hard to distill what it is because like now that I'm thinking about it, it might not be a feature. It's probably like a vibe or an attitude or something like that.
Okay.
So like far less tangible, and I'd have to think about it more, which maybe I clickbaited you in that specific regard.
If you think of it, you can always let me know later or something, and I'll just keep my
Yeah.
eyes peeled for this vibe or whatever.
But like I can tell you though that like demonstrations of creativity or proficiency are that kind of thing for me.
Ooh, okay.
Like the other okay, so there's 3 things. So for example, there was this chick in that I went to middle school with. And she sat next to me in advisory. And like I remember like the first time I ever met her was because I looked next to me and like she was to my left, I think. And she was drawing like some kind of like comic panel, and it was good.
Cool.
And I was like, wow. And I got like 80% stupider. I was like, wow, I'm just immediately smitten. That's so cool. So like something like that. There's a lot of like really good dancers that I've seen around like the dance community, and I'm like, you are so good, and I'm stupider around you, quite frankly. So something like that, like displays of creativity, but also like displays of like expertise and competence and that kind of thing. Like those are also very attractive to me, make me stupider. But also the third thing is like, and it doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's like catnip. Like whenever I'm talking with somebody and like you can tell that like they are like fully immersed in like what I'm saying, like they are extremely present. Like there's like professional present, right? Like I am making myself present, right? But then there's like I'm present without trying to be present. Like they're just that's intoxicating too.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Some of that almost feels like it's like when somebody's interested in you, they become much more interesting. But there are definitely people who are a bit like this with everybody, and I think they tend to break a lot of hearts.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I also that's whenever I feel that, like whenever I notice it, I immediately run it through that filter. Like, okay, is this me or is this a you thing?
Yeah, yeah. Gotta like get them to interact with somebody else and see if they do it to them too.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that makes sense. Are there any other like deal breaker types of things that you think we haven't covered? Or well, I mean, I guess maybe I should probably ask anyway. I think most people who are not religious are fine with like sex before marriage or something, but do you have like strong opinions about anything to do with that?
No, sex is good.
Okay. Yeah, I
I
figured that would be
mean,
most people's answer.
yeah, I mean, uh, as long as we're like as long as like okay, I I'm gonna say this, and it's going to be something that I believe and something that I aspire to, but in practice, I am not necessarily like I don't necessarily comply with my own things that like I aspire to.
Okay.
Um, I just like want to be clear that there is a gap.
Hmm.
That being said, I do like to I do like to like generally speaking, like sex is more fun when it's with somebody like that I'm more connected with. Like it just at least in my experience, it just gets better like the more you know the person.
Yeah.
Um and I feel like there is some minimum threshold that I do have to know the person because on one hand, like, you know, if there is for whatever reason an accidental pregnancy, then it's like now we got to do some adult shit.
Yeah.
And that requires like having some kind of rapport established and you know like I want to have that level of rapport and ideally I would never sleep with anybody that if we did accidentally get pregnant I would not want to co-parent with you.
Yeah, I
uh,
have the same attitude, which is not that common, I think, actually.
yeah it's yeah um yeah like that's what I aspire towards. Like
Okay.
I want to maintain some level of connection. I want it to be like somebody I have rapport with. I want it to be somebody that you know like I not necessarily like, "Oh my gosh, like, I could see myself raising a family with you," but, like, somebody where it's like, "Oh, fuck, we're gonna have a baby." Like, are you at least, like, can I trust you to raise my kid
Yeah.
in some capacity, right?
Mm.
Um, those are things that I would want to happen. Um, has that not been the case in the past? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, will it be the case in the future? Probably. To be honest, probably. Let's be transparent. But it is something that, like, I try to make sure is the case.
Okay, nice.
Especially, like, it's a lot easier if there's no alcohol involved, if there's no drugs involved, if,
Mhm.
you know, like, the more of these factors we can remove, the more I can reach my aspirations,
Yeah.
we'll say.
Well, I hope you have fun at the vibeclipse and all the parties and shit. I'm
Oh,
jealous.
absolutely, I plan on it. I am gonna milk the I don't know where I was going with that, but yes.
Yeah. Suckle at the teat of the vibe.
Oh,
Of the
yes.
vibe.
I'll be suckling for sure.
Amazing. Awesome. All right, I'll see you around then.
Yeah, see you on the TL.
Okay, cool. Bye.
Bye.